So apologies in advance, I am still under the weather. I cannot breathe through either one of these nostrils, so if I do sound a bit that's why. I've got a lovely can of Iron Brew right here, not sponsored, to soothe the throat as we dive into my second ranking at the end of year list, awards, whatever you want to call them, from the top rope, the top 10 best wrestling matches of 2023. Let's go. Hello and welcome to FTTR, I am Hugh McQuaid, and today we are talking about the top 10 best wrestling matches of 2023. This is my subjective list, this is what I like, and yes, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about my favourite matches. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Please subscribe, please like this video, please do everything you want, and thank you all for your support as we talk about this, because I do think 2023 has been a stacked year in terms of match of the year contenders. There's a lot that I could talk about. There's a lot of matches, from indie promotions to main events of WrestleMania. There's a lot of stuff to dive into, a lot of great matches. This could have easily been a top 50, a top 30, a top 20, but I've narrowed it down to 10. It's always going to be 10, as hard as that is. But it was hard. It was so hard this year to decide what match to go with, which top 10 to do. It is very, very, very difficult. Very difficult indeed. But we're going to start off, like we do in my Wrestles of the Year, talking about honourable mentions. So on my honourable mentions, I have a lot of matches that just did not make the cut, and I'm going to list a lot of them for you right now, starting with Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch in a steel cage match, Luke Jacobs versus Inamura from Wonder Brawl, the men's Royal Rumble match, Will Ospreay versus Speedball Mike Bailey from Bound for Glory, Will Ospreay versus Shota Umino from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Charles Crowley versus Matthew Raywall, also from Progress Wonder Brawl, CM Punk versus Samoa Joe from All In Wembley, Gene Money versus Warren Banks from Progress Wrestling's Vendetta, Spike Trivet versus Cara Noir at Heavy Metal, Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest from Backlash, Ilya Dragunov versus Carmelo Hayes. Take your pick, because they both slapped. Those are my honourable mentions. There's more that will come into my head, I'm sure. Like the main event of WrestleMania, the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. There's a lot of matches I could talk about for my match of the year. But sadly, we need to get on with the show. We need to get on the show, and we need to get to a talking. So shall we jump in to number 10? Coming in at number 10, we have the big triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship from WrestleMania. Gunther versus Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. The only thing that would have got this match higher is if the commentary wasn't nearly unbearable from good old Titus O'Neil, because this was just an extension of the match of the year contender that Gunther and Sheamus had at Clash of the Castle, only now we've thrown a Drew McIntyre in there, and it was deliciously violent. I loved the story that they were telling between Drew and Sheamus. I think it was told to near perfection, and Gunther just being a dominant Intercontinental Champion and having the best match of the night, hands down, at night 2 of WrestleMania was a thing of beauty. I absolutely loved it. Coming in at number 9, we have the match that I held off doing this video because I wanted to watch Ring of Honor Final Battle, and Athena versus Billy Starks just crept onto my list. I loved this match. This was enhanced by the fact that I watched the big 3-hour epic that they put on the Ring of Honor YouTube channel to really get a gist of the story. This was a star-making turn for Billy Starks. Absolutely phenomenal performance in this match. I loved the character work. I loved how violent this match was. I loved Athena just being this brutal, it's almost mental, this twisted, warped relationship that they had. And some of the near falls in this match were perfect, in my opinion. You got an awesome kick out of one spot from Billy Starkz, and Athena just edged out the win over Billy Starkz, tangling her up in a submission, which leaves room for more. There's easily more you can do with this feud. I want this to be a long-running feud and continuation, as they did embrace at the end a really, really well-deserved moment. But I think we're going to get more of this story going forward, and I'm very excited because this was an absolute cracker of a match. Coming in at number 8, we have my favourite match from WrestleMania, and that is Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. So I rewatched this very recently, and the way that these two women turned the crowd around is nothing short of mesmerising and incredibly impressive. The crowd were not into this match whatsoever at the start of the match from the opening bell, but they really used a hard-hitting style, a well-told story, brutal spots to tell a fantastic story of Rhea Ripley finally defeating Charlotte at WrestleMania, following on from her NXT title match at WrestleMania 37, maybe? I think it was 37. And this was just awesome. This was awesome. My favourite women's match of the year. It was nothing short of incredible. I loved this, and I can't wait to see what Rhea does at WrestleMania this year. Coming in at number 7, we have the American Dragon Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. from WrestleDream. This was incredible. Incredible technical wrestling at its finest. There was nothing short of breathtaking. An absolutely breathtaking feat of technical wrestling. I think Zack Sabre Jr. has had an incredible year. I think Bryan Danielson has had an incredible year. And having those two final tangle up, the match that we were supposed to get at Forbidden Door, finally we got it. And it was everything. It was everything that we wanted. And they left a lot in the tank. A lot left in the tank in this match. So we can easily get a trilogy, easily get a rubber match. There's so much that could be done with this story. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The image of Bryan Danielson hitting the dragon screw is going to stay in my brain forever, because it was the most awful looking dragon screw I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, it sticks with me for that. It was incredibly physical, incredible technical masterclass that probably won't be topped, let's be honest. Coming in at number 6, we have, rounding out the double duty of Bryan Danielson, we have Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks at All Out in a strap match. God damn, this was fantastic. I think with everything that happened with CM Punk, everything following Wembley, all the talk of All Out, everyone saying it's just a filler show, it's just a buffer show, Danielson and Starks went out there with something to prove, and they did. Because this was one of the most violent, brutal, uncomfortable to watch strap matches I've ever seen. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it. There's nothing else I can say other than this match was beautiful violence. At the end of the day, beautiful violence. Pulled Bryan Danielson back, coming out of his injury, and he puts on a match like this. Apparently his arm wasn't very well still. It was nothing short of sensational. Like, this was one of the best, easily the best match that I think Ricky Starks has had this year. And if this is the trajectory that he's on, my God, we're in for some special stuff from Ricky Starks and Danielson, once again proving why he is the GOAT of all elite wrestling. Now we are hitting the top 5 matches, in my opinion. And coming in at number 5, we have my favourite match from AEW All in Wembley, and that is Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay. This might be a controversial choice, but from the moment Jericho started singing Judas, I was fully hooked. From Ospreay's promo leading into the match, and the match itself, I absolutely loved. Like, I love Will Ospreay working in the ring. I love Jericho. I do. It's hard to love Jericho sometimes, but I do love Jericho. And this was sort of in the time when he was putting on banger, 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 banger. And he was putting on a banger in Wembley Stadium. This was one of the best matches that I've seen out of Jericho in years. And I loved everything about this. The near fall spots, the crazy, kickouts that they did, the Stormbreaker for the win. I loved it. I've watched this numerous times, and it is easily my favourite match of all in Wembley. Fantastic. Really fantastic match. And the fact that they didn't have, a title going into this or anything like that, it could have easily underdelivered, but both men showed up and showed why they are the best. Coming in at number 4, we have, it's got to be on here somewhere, Hangman Page versus Swerve Strickland from Full Gear, the Texas Death Match, a match that will also live rent-free in my head. The image of Hangman drinking the blood of Swerve and spitting it out like Triple H is just never going to leave me. I don't think. It's never going to leave me. But apart from that, this was just one of the most violent spectacles I think I've ever seen inside a wrestling ring. The barbed wire getting wrapped around the face of Hangman was awful. Really awful. The cinder blocks, the actual finish, the hanging of the Hangman. I loved it. I loved it. I loved that Swerve went over as well. Swerve stapling himself is going to live rent-free in the noggin. It was fantastic. Utterly, utterly fantastic, this match. And when we get that third one, my God, is it going to be crazy. Coming in at number 3, we have a match that I have not seen on a lot of people's top 10s. I feel like this was one that people may have forgotten about, which they really shouldn't, because it is awesome. And that is Ilya Dragunov versus Dijak from NXT Battleground, the last man standing match. I rewatched this, and it is just as awesome as I remember. It is goddamn brutal. I think that must have been my thing for this year. I just got into brutal stuff, but this is really brutal. This is just gnarly stuff happening again and again and again. When Dijak has Ilya in the corner and he's just battering him with a kendo stick. It's nothing I've ever seen before. When Ilya hits the Torpedo Moscow through the table to Dijak, I think something burst out of my chest that day, because it was otherworldly. And Ilya getting the win with a brutal elbow from the top, from the steel steps down, was just a perfect finish, perfectly capped off this feud that I think was one of the feuds of the year, really. It was awesome. Really awesome last man standing matches. They're hard to do, but Texas Death Match is basically a last man standing match. So this was the year of amazing last man standing matches, in my opinion. Coming in at number 2, we have another match that has not been featured as much, but this one hit me somewhere special. It really, really did. And that is the Pillars Fatal 4-Way from Double or Nothing. This was probably the best Fatal 4-Way I've ever seen. The way these 4 lads worked together and worked with each other is breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. There's so many things from this match that I loved. Hitting their mentors' finishers was the best part for me. That was just fan service, oh my God, what is going on? And then the finish itself was tremendous. MJF hitting Darby again and winning with a headlock takeover, following that story, one of my favourite stories of the year. I loved it. I absolutely love this Fatal 4-Way, and I want more people to talk about it. I'm going to go back and rewatch it today, actually. I probably will do that, because I want to see it again. It is great. It's probably the most over that Sammy Guevara has ever been, probably the most over that Jungle Boy's ever been, and MJF at the height of his heel dickery in this match. It was peak wrestling for me. This is what I love about wrestling, is this Fatal 4-Way. And coming in at number 1, we have See, don't turn off this video. Do not turn off this video, but I am going to be a cheeky man, because this is my video. This is how I do things. So coming in at number 1, I'm not picking between these two, like a lot of other people have. Instead, I'm going to be different. They're both number 1. You know what they are, and that is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 1 at Wrestle Kingdom, and Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 2 at Forbidden Door. I ain't picking between the two. I'm not giving them separate spaces, because they're just equally as good as each other, and I adore them just as much as each other. Easily my favourite match of the year. I don't think this changed since I saw that match at Wrestle Kingdom, and I don't think, as soon as we saw the second one at Forbidden Door, it was a battle between those two, and I ain't picking. This was just masterful. Both matches were so different, yet so similar, in which Kenny was the bad guy in the first one, Will was the bad guy in the second one, flipping those dynamics, and each one they played up different aspects of their character. Kenny's come back to New Japan, and he's testing Will. He's testing Will in New Japan, testing him at Wrestle Kingdom, and that is where you have another brutal match. It was really brutal, that first Wrestle Kingdom match, and it flies by like that. It is one of the fastest paced 30-minute matches I think I've ever seen, because it just goes by in a breeze. And then the Forbidden Door match, while I know a lot of people don't like the Don Callis spot, that's the one thing that's a little bit iffy, the rest of the match easily makes up for that, because you've got Kick Out of One from the One Winged Angel, which is probably my most rewatched wrestling clip of the year. You've got the Shawn Michaels impersonations that Will Ospreay does, and the way he slams Kenny's head into that announce table is just ruthless, and they're tied a piece. They are tied a piece, which means we have to get a third one at some point. Please get well soon, Kenny Omega. Will Ospreay's on his way to AEW. We'll see what happens from there. But these two matches are combined as one in my heart, and they are my number 1. Do not hate me. And that is where I draw a close to this list. That is my top 10 ranking of the matches of the year. But I want to know what your guys are. Let me know down in the comments. Let me know everything you want about your matches of the year. What's your number 1? Let me know your worst if you really want to. I won't be doing a video on the worst, but you can let me know if you want. Let me know. Let me know everything. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.